Hello and welcome to Critical Conversations. I'm your host, Karissa Dean, and I'm in amazement. I'm trying to find new words instead of excited because I always say I'm so excited. I'm in amazement that Chrissy and I were able to connect yet again because my Google Calendar has been arguing with me a ton. So we made it. I love Chrissy. You guys already know this. I've given, great reviews about her work and what she brings to the table as far as supporting women. She is honestly the easiest girl to chat with. So if you like anything about what we talk about today, please make sure to reach out to her. We'll have all that information for you. But today we're going to do kind of like a rapid fire, which is a follow-up of the episode that came out, I think about a month ago. We really dove into some hot topics around like how much our bodies change, how much hormones change, and, reevaluating, all the things. So we're going to do some rapid fire. This is why I love when you guys send me DMs or emails or voice notes in on the show, because it really makes it so that you're hearing what you want to hear. So thank you for those of you who sent in feedback. Keep doing that. We love it.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Chrissy, why don't you give a little quick intro about yourself just one more time, and then we're going to dive into these questions that I got from the listeners.
Sure. Thanks again for having me back. I'm so excited for this. Hi, everybody. I'm Chrissy Williams. I'm a women's health functional dietitian. I run my own private practice. It's 100% virtual. So we see women from, here in Philadelphia all the way over to Seattle and, Washington, right? All over the country, which I love so much. And we really focus on hormone support, gut health, metabolic rebooting, and just overall energy and just feeling really good in our bodies as women, but also, educating women and learning more and understanding what our body needs and signs and symptoms, because our bodies keep the score, right? I said that in the first episode, and it's understanding what the symptoms are actually trying to tell you to help us, functionally from a root cause approach, feel better, feel really good to love life.
Yeah. It's no Band-Aid effect. We're like getting in there, pulling out the weeds, and then planning what really needs to be existing.
Exactly.
Okay. So the first question we got was around like postpartum, and I didn't get a ton of like clarity, but what comes up for you when I say postpartum in your world?
Yes. And we work so much to kind of preface. We work with women literally from their first period to their last period and beyond. So postpartum is very, near and dear because, not to get into a little bit more of how I got here in the functional space versus clinical is when I went through my first postpartum journey, I started feeling, and I think this resonates with so many, feeling very fatigued, having brain fog, forgetting why I came into a room, forgetting what my husband and I just talked about, feeling really low and really not myself. And I had like skin issues and I wasn't like, had GI issue, bloating. I was like, what is happening here? And I essentially went to my practitioner, my doctor at the time, and was like, hey, something's off. Can we run some tests? I'm feeling XYZ. Long story short, because I'm a dietitian, my weight, I was back to my pre-baby weight and my blood work looked quote unquote normal. And so I was basically like gaslit to be like, hey, this is just new mom life. Like you are going to be tired. You are going to feel like this. And you just kind of have to like get through it and you'll be fine. And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, absolutely not. And I essentially went down, taking more courses, taking more certs, combining my clinical and functional education and kind of marrying. And this is exactly like why we're here now. But I would say that's what so many women come to us for, like postpartum, either trying to get pregnant or after, being like, hey, something's off and everything, on my doctor's end looks good, but like, why do I feel like crap? Like I absolutely don't want to feel that way. So I definitely hear for whatever listener said that I'm assuming that's kind of what she was leaning towards and what does that really mean? Right.
Yeah.
So to kind of the second part of that is like, okay, so yeah, we can feel quote unquote, we can feel like crap, but have like normal blood work. And I think it's so important to realize when we're talking about healthcare, there is like such a big range for what's considered normal, right? And very much, and that's like fine because it's a general population, but that doesn't always mean that like me and like, having whatever my thyroid hormone level was is within the range, but that doesn't mean it was optimal for me. So this is literally what we look at is for this person, like for you, Karissa, if you came to me and you're like, I feel like crap, I just had my baby, like, why do I feel so off and like dysregulated and like, so, all the things, I've never felt that way. This is when, okay, let's look at your big picture. What are you struggling with? And then what does everything look like? What does your blood work look like? But also what does your hormone status look like? What does your gut health look like? What is your minerals? Because it's one thing to feel one thing to feel a certain way, but then to be told everything's normal, like clearly that's not right. So
yeah,
really looking at a root cause approach and kind of looking at a bigger holistic picture of like, oh, well, no wonder you're feeling off because your blood work looks fine, but then, maybe she has all these gut issues. Maybe she has a parasite. Maybe she has, a sluggish liver and sluggish metabolism. Your thyroid's like slightly off. I mean, all of those things is, I think that's,
yeah.
Does that answer the question?
I think it does. And I think like the one thing
loaded.
that I was, one thing that came up for me is I think postpartum, we don't often consider like the trauma of the body after giving birth. And I think that if we're talking about the body keeping the score or the wisdom of our body, right? These are two amazing books. If you haven't read them and you want to deep dive this, The Body Keeps the Score and The Wisdom of the Body, it's all about releasing whatever the body's holding on to. So I think when we give birth, some of us have great experiences. Some of us have like what we would call quote unquote normal. And then a lot of us have very traumatic experiences because it's not what we wanted it to be. It's not what we pictured. Our body is holding on to all of that. And if you don't take time to get curious about that and heal that and release that and then recalibrate your body, which is what Chrissy is saying she does with her clients, I think that's where we really struggle. And I would even go as far to say that is potentially what causes problems like 10 years down the line.
100%. No, you make even, so I'll say too, and this is you reminded me of another amazing point is what, even like if you had the most like beautiful, perfect quote unquote childbirth that you wanted, it's still, you think about the like what the body has to do to grow a baby, to have a baby, to, even after, that's a lot of physical stress, and which is fine. Like, our bodies should be resilient to stress. But the issue is no one talks about, well, what does it mean after? Like postpartum is like, you're literally and then especially if you're nursing, you're giving a lot of your nutrients to the baby, which means you don't need just a general multivite. Like you need that plus more to replenish everything that you lost. And that's such a big, I think like what's the word I'm trying to say? It's such a missing factor to the postpartum phase. It's not just, oh, what do I have to eat to lose the baby weight? But it's actually more, how do I re-nourish my body so that my thyroid is working really well? My adrenals are working really well. So I don't get burnout. So I don't like start like having weight loss resistance, having like low mood and depression and anxiety. Like a lot of everything that I just said is so much because we're so depleted in that state and we're not replenishing properly.
100%. And I'm thinking like of the women who have C-sections. You have medicine and like medical things that are foreign to your body that you're being injected with. Your body has to figure out how to process that as well. So you're like,
it's a whole thing.
It's like, but we live in this society that doesn't necessarily give this like validation to take your time to heal, learn about healing, pay attention to your body. It's all just like, oh, well, you had a baby, duh. Like,
Yeah. Like, okay, well, welcome to, what do they say? Like, well, welcome to mom life. You're
Yeah.
never going to sleep again. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, yes, like having a baby wake up in the night is one thing, but it's so much beyond that. It's like, well, what are you doing to get that resilience back in your body?
Yeah.
Like how can you be stronger to like handle all of the stress with the baby?
And how do you heal, right? Like we don't think about allowing our bodies to heal. So this could be an entire like 20 part podcast. And I'm like,
totally.
And for me, like Ruby's 10, so it was a long time ago, but I'm remembering so much about how society just kind of was like, high five, out the door, see you later, good luck. Like, and
it's very, it's just not enough. I mean, rightfully so, the attention's on the baby, right? We'll make sure the baby's doing this and not doing, whatever, and eating this, but it's also like, well, what about mom?
Yeah.
Like, how is she replenishing? And, it's sleep, but it's so much more. It's like the food you eat. It's like, the lack of food you're eating, the nutrients, your lifestyle habits. And I think one of the biggest things that I tell, our postpartum clients is like, well, one, it's not going to heal overnight, obviously.
No.
And then, but two, also like, I don't want to create overwhelm around like feeling like you need to do everything perfectly, because of course that's not realistic either for a new mom, especially like a first time mom. So it's really just, I think you mentioned this earlier, like it's a journey. It's really just one step at a time, but literally also another reason why there's practitioners like myself and, my team to really help support every single week. Like, what's one thing we can do? What's one new thing we can do? How can we tweak what you're already doing so that, you're living your life, and not getting overwhelmed by all the things. Yeah.
Well, and I think the biggest reason why I love podcasting and doing all of this type of work is because I think for me, when I had my child 10 years ago, nobody was talking about any of this. And
100%.
and I felt so alone. And so I just think it's also, I just want to validate for anyone listening, you're not alone in whatever you're experiencing with whatever is happening to your body. Like, unfortunately, as unique as you are, what's happening to your body is not that unique. So like, you're not alone. So like, seek the help, ask the questions.
Which is like a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing. Like this, it's not normal, but it's common.
Yeah.
Right. So, but let's get you back to feeling better. I think the biggest takeaway in this is like, if you are feeling weird or off postpartum, like it's just a cry that, you got to look there's another way. Let's get you feeling better.
There's always a new direction. Okay. So with that, the next question was around body change, which I think, like when I look at my body from age 0 to age 36, like it changes. So let's talk about it. Like how, I mean, I don't even know where to start. It's such a broad question. So I'm going to let you hone in on where you think we should take it.
Yeah, I feel like there are so many places. I think the one thing I need to preface here is like your body will change like over time. And it's, again, it's like the beautiful evolution of our bodies, right? I'll say that. And then one is really just accepting where you are is going to be a big first piece, right? Accepting that this is, your evolution and this is your body. And as long as you are doing all the things to nourish and support your physical and emotional and mental well-being, like you're good.
Yeah.
That's like the number one. I feel like I need to kind of preface that, right? Like
100%.
Body acceptance.
100%.
On the second piece, and I think this is maybe where some of your viewers are trying to get at, is that, well, what if it's changing drastically and you really haven't done anything different?
I think that's,
Yeah. Well, and as a dietitian and like all foods fit approach, I really need to emphasize that first part. But then 100%. The second part is I do get it. We have a lot of clients who come to us like, hey, I'm in my late 30s or I'm in my 40s now, and I gained like 10 pounds in a year and I didn't do anything different. And then I tried to lose weight, and then I even went on the paleo diet that worked for me 10 years ago and it's not working for me now. Like, what's happening, And I will say that we can kind of talk about that more, because yeah, that's a red flag that there are things off metabolically that we need to look deeper into, because gaining like 10 plus pounds in a year, like with unintentionally, that's a big deal. Even on the flip side, even losing weight, because we talk about weight gain all the time, but weight change can also be drastically losing weight and not doing anything different. Those, like, these are all red flags that, like, hormonally, something's going on here that we need to look deeper in. Something with the thyroid. I think that, again, there's so many underlying causes as to why that's happening that I don't think would be like appropriate to get into right this second. But, there are lots of, I think when you do that, like if you are feeling like weight changes or weight gain, I think the biggest thing is like, hold on. And to your point, this is total Karissa phrase, is get curious and not be like, instead of just drastically trying to like change your diet and do a whole bunch of things, you need to get curious. I would start looking at, okay, well, what does my stress look like the last 3 to 6 months? What has my nutrition look like? Have I had any traumatic experiences going on lately? How do I feel dealing with my current stressors in my life? How is my sleep quality? How's my energy? Like, kind of looking at that first, because I will bet like all of my money that it's the weight part. The weight change is like the last thing. I would expect that that person or that woman had been experiencing tons of other things that maybe she just forgot about, and that is not correlating together, when they are 100% all related to each other. And the weight is always like the insides, I always say, are going to be changing first. They're giving the red flags first. And the weight is going to be like one of the last things to finally change. So again, when we talk about root cause approaches, we're looking at, okay, internally, how are you feeling? And like focusing on that. And then, one of two things happen after you start working on the root stuff, is your body comp or your weight will quote unquote change on its own. And, or we can get more into a nutrition strategy to get you, quote unquote, where you want to be. So
I love you so much. I love you so much. I just like, I want to jump through the screen because I mean, I'm over here. I'm like, yeah, I'm really curious. I have about 45 questions based on what you just said. But I want to start with like what you said. Like the weight is the first thing we notice, but really there were like 100 red flags. And I'm like thinking of, I have a handful of clients that I'm thinking of that are going through traumatic experiences and they're frustrated about their weight. And they're not correlating that like life is happening. So my question is, we all have stressful periods of our life. Like I'm thinking even in my journey, like when I am more plump is when I'm happy because I'm a better eater. And this is probably like where I should be health wise. Like my weight right now is probably like my best health, because when stress happens, I don't eat and I tend to drop weight. So I think like if you think about how you react to stress, you can think about your body as protecting itself in a way. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah. So I hate this term, but I think a lot of people say it like in the health industry. So your body or your metabolism goes into maybe like more of a survival mode, right? So when we have high stress, so for you, Karissa, like your example, you don't eat as much. And that's how you react to stress. So when you have stress, naturally our blood sugar will drive up, and then that makes us less likely to eat. So for you, like it actually is a biological response. It's like literally that like fight or flight survival, like no need to eat. Like let's just like we're
deal with all this stuff,
breaking down your fat, making energy on your own, and like go through the day. But to like remember high cortisol, running on high cortisol, I think we talked about it in the past episode, like it over like, again, like in years, that's just going to continue to slow down your metabolism. You're still putting tons of stress literally on your thyroid, and your thyroid, our metabolic driver, doesn't like that.
Right.
So that's going to be, a big trigger why we don't eat. Some people don't eat a lot under stress. And then on the other hand, people are like eating excessively because that maybe their their coping mechanism.
Right.
So, I mean, and again, that's not good for your thyroid either, because then you're overeating. Again, your blood sugar's out of whack. And I say this, but I also need to say, I totally understand. I've been under really stressful times, and sometimes, you're not going to have that self-control to kind of figure, and that's okay. And that is your response. And I think, really feeling the emotions versus suppressing it with other things, like you need to feel it. You need to go through the emotions of it all. Otherwise, like you're going to just hold on to all of that cortisol and build up. And then you're going to have that sluggish or slower survival mode metabolism.
Right.
And then have all these issues down the line of weight changes and all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. So really when we're looking at like, oh, I gained 10 pounds in a year, it's more about, well, what happened 6 months before, like, because it kind of, it creeps up on you. Right. And I think
it's not instant. Yeah, it's not instant. Or I mean, I guess it could be, depending how intense your nutrition and stress and all things. But overall, it's like, yeah, people had maybe a stressful time in a year ago, but then like their body's still trying. Like your body was in chronic fight or flight at that time, and then it's trying to and then maybe 6 months later, it's trying to re-regulate itself.
Right.
And that could be, oh, I can actually hold on to food again. Oh, I can actually hold, I can create, stored energy for later. And that might be gaining weight. But again, it's all of this is really like your body is always reacting. I think that's so really important to remember. So even if you were stressing that 6 months ago, whatever, it's it's not inevitable that you're going to gain weight. It's just okay, when you're feeling up to it, how are you bouncing back? How are you supporting your metabolism to not go that downward spiral so that you don't feel those? Does that make sense? Yeah.
That and what you just said, okay, how are we? You're getting curious about how it gets to so it's okay, we're all going to have stressful periods. We're all going to I think our last episode, I was I'm going to book a call with you. You emailed me the thing. And then I was okay, wait, I'm not doing it right now because I'm going to Morocco and in London. And then I'm going here and then I'm going here. And I'm my diet is going to be whack. I'm not going to be hydrating myself. I don't want to run tests in a season where I know it's chaotic. I want to run a test when I'm doing what I'm doing on my normal day to day, because that's the marker for majority of my life. Right. I'm I don't want to test at this extreme or because I'm living my best life. I want to test when I'm just okay, every day. So so the thing that I'm trying to get out here is we need to, this leads to the next question, which is how frequently are we reevaluating? And I think this is the piece. If you gain 10 pounds in a year and you're frustrated at the quote unquote weight, but you don't take time to reevaluate, okay, I went through this insanely stressful season. Now what? Now how do I move forward? What's the new path? I think that's where people get tripped up. And then they're well, I just gained 10 pounds and my GI system's wrecked and I guess my thyroid's gone to shit. So I'll start taking this thyroid medicine. And we just we throw our hands in the air because it becomes this bigger problem where we have to look at our mindset, our physical, are we exercising? And then it's what are we eating? And clearing, detoxing, cleansing, and then replenishing. So how frequently do we realistically, as women who have hormones and changes and all everything, how frequently are we needing to reevaluate?
I mean, I think that will kind of vary per person. I mean, as a practitioner myself, I'm every day, I'm okay, how am I feeling today? What's really stressful? Why am I feeling this why am I like right now, right? I'm very low energy and I'm very like, even, I would even say low motivated right now. Like, I just feel like not great, and I'm like, well, wait, why do I feel like that? Like, do I just need more coffee? No. Like, how was my sleep? Well, I actually slept really good. Oh, well, I have my period coming in a couple of days. So like, I'm in this luteal phase right now. And again, like really understanding your body and like what it's like, okay, so yeah, this, being in my luteal PMS phase, I give myself permission to kind of feel a little bit lower than I would in my follicular phase when I'm like bright and magnetic and like, cheerful and whatever. And that's totally fine. Like, I'm not obsessing over it. I'm not trying to like, oh my gosh, am I just like so depressed with my life? And I'm just like, I'm done. And like, no, it's like, okay, well, I understand my body. And I kind of want to like touch on you said a couple of things that I just have to remember. I made a mental note. The one thing too, I think you mentioned like, okay, yeah, you don't want to do testing. And then I'll answer your question because I didn't fully answer.
No, you're fine.
When you were like, I'm going to wait to do testing, 100%, you want to wait until you're like in your quote unquote routine for the most part to do any kind of testing. But then I would also, kind of say to like just all the listeners, right? Like just, when you're on vacation or you're out of your norm, yes, it kind of can be a little wacky, but we also teach our clients too, to like, how can you, get your protein in while you're on vacation? How can you so to kind of like, again, reduce the amount of, I don't want to say like chaos, but like kind of like the out of routineness, because the fact of the matter is our hormones and our body, our metabolism, it responds to routine.
Yeah.
So yes, when you have things out of the norm, stressful times, it's like, okay, well, what small things can you do a little bit to at least like tell, like signal to your metabolism, like we're good, we're safe.
Yeah.
You don't need to change. You don't need to like tweak anything. We're not in survival mode. Like we're just having a little fun and it's all good. So that's the one thing. The second part, you mentioned like even medication, right? Oh, okay, I'm just going to accept that I'm going on thyroid medication and I'm accepting and like I'm on antidepressants or whatever it is. It's like, yes, and medication could very well be helpful. We have clients who are on medication, but that doesn't take away for the fact that your body still needs to like get nourished well. It needs balancing blood sugar. It needs like good sleep quality. It needs all these things. So medication is really just to like kind of help, supplement, but it's not going to like be your saving grace in itself. You still have to put in the work and you have the education to nourish and take care of your body so that, your thyroid doesn't get worse. And then you have to increase your medication dosage and like, so like all of those things. So, I think my thing is just educating yourself in general, like as a woman, like, well, what does like, is fasting good for me? Is, should I eat breakfast? Should I not? Should I drink coffee? Should I not? All of these things, it's really getting curious of what your body responds to is number one. But then two, dear, to answer your question, I'm sorry, this was a long-winded answer, but I had a lot of thoughts.
No, this is great.
Is okay, the retesting. And so I would say at the very least, I love retesting myself, and I have a lot of clients doing this just annual. And every year, like looking at, okay, like, well, what does my gut health look like? How am I digesting my nutrients? Am I digesting? What does my hormones look like? What is my blood sugar? What is my my labs on my blood work and my hair tissue mineral test look like? At least annually, like just like regular blood work with your practitioner. But then on the second part for those who have gone through like maybe just a super extra traumatic time or something, I would say like after that, when you're starting to feel like a little bit like you're kind of like regulating a little bit, I would be curious to do like a hair tissue mineral test then and be like, well, how do my nutrients look like? What does my thyroid look like now? Like from the last 3 months, because minerals are depleted even faster as like the more stress we have in the body. So, again, like that, everyone's like always like, oh, just take a multivite and think that that's going to be everything you need because it's got everything, right? And that's absolutely like so far from true. So I would look at, okay, now that I've gone through a super like stressful time and I'm ready to like kind of get back into routine, what do I specifically need? Do you need more magnesium? Do you need more potassium? Do you need more B vitamins? All of that. So long-winded answer, but there we go.
No, it's perfect. I mean, I kind of gave you a long-winded like, myself, but I think, good. I mean, what I what I wrote down when you were talking is every body takes work and every body needs different work. And
yes, that's it. That's the whole thing, is like, it's everything is individualized. And I think that's why, like, I love social media, you know, but I think it's like a catch-22, because I think they're giving a lot of, and I'm on it too, but like there's a lot of awareness, right? That we're learning a lot more. But then once we start saying, you know, I'm seeing influencer stuff like, oh, just take this supplement, like, and you're going to feel amazing. Or it's like, that's where I'm like, stop, just like, don't do that part. Like, everyone needs different things. It's not like a one size fits all.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that I have that same frustration in the coaching industry. There is not
Of
one
course.
size that fits all. And when people are like, how do you work with your clients? And I'm like, individually, like it's one-to-one. Like, there are group programs and things where I can teach to the masses, you know, but ultimately you are so unique. Your DNA strands, the way that your mind works, your conditioning. I mean, it's too unique for it to be cookie cutter. Oh, just meditate. Like, that doesn't work for everyone. Sorry. Like, and we all need to meditate differently, you know?
Yes. I love that. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. Can you define functional versus clinical? We got a question about that.
Yes. I'm trying to think of like what they mean. So I guess because I'm a functional dietitian.
I think because you said it, like what is functional and what is clinical as far as medicine.
Clinical is like Western medicine. It's like seeing your doctor, seeing your endo, your gyno, whatever, and that's great. And then they have there are conventional lab ranges that are considered normal, right? Like your thyroid TSH is, I think it's like 1.8 to 5 or something like that, if you know what I'm talking about. But it's like range. Here are the specific ranges, like on typical blood work that's considered normal or not.
Yeah. Which is based off of like a clinical scientific study,
which is based off like huge populations of like healthy people, right? So like it's a great start, 100%. And usually when things are abnormal, it's by that time it's like super abnormal, where it's like, oh my gosh, this is like, why is it so like, you know, aggressively high or low? And then, you know, conventional doctors, like our physicians, will intervene with whatever necessary. And then more of a functional approach is, I think there's so many different ways to go about it. But you know, when I say functional, I'm looking at, you know, optimal versus normal. So like my ranges for what's considered normal or optimal are like going to be like a smaller range, like a more conservative range for different markers, different blood work. I look deeper at, I do mineral testing from your hair. I do like, you know, urine hormone testing. I do gut testing, which not like, you know, it's on, to be honest, it's none of it's provided by, you know, none of it's covered for insurance. I mean, I think that's like a huge thing. It's like, so it's like conventional is like every, you know, what's within your insurance, you know, to kind of put it bluntly. But then functional is just definitely more of like that layer up. It's like, well, if you're still not feeling good because you're in this, you know, your conventional labs are normal, but you still feel like crap, it's time to look a little bit deeper. And then we do more root cause approaches. So we'll look at, like, I will turn to food and herbs and maybe like some, you know, supplements before I turn to medicine.
Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, I don't know. It's such
that's a good
broad.
No, I think it was like just honing in on what does that mean, right? Because I think if you're curious about it, you know. But if you're like, wait a minute, what?
Yes.
Then it's new information. So I think it's new information for some people, which we're so excited that you're here learning more about
holistic.
yourself.
It's a little bit more of a holistic root cause approach versus, you know, standard medicine.
Definitely. Okay. Do we naturally gain weight as we age? Like, what is the theory here? Because I think, I'll just take this from my perspective. Growing up, right? Everyone's a kid, you're an adolescent, you know, you're like, you just are who you are. But then you look at like generationally, like, let's say you're at your high school graduation and you're meeting a handful of your friends' parents.
Mm-hmm.
the statistical range, if we're just being general here, more adults are heavier than not.
Yes.
Right?
I think that's yes.
It's a very broad, general statement.
It's a super loaded question. Yeah, I would
Super
say
loaded.
one, remember, like high school, like you're still a kid, which I don't think people really understand. Like we're still growing. Our metabolism is still like, at a all time like high just because we're so young. With that being said, I don't I think the weight gain, I don't even know how I want to say it. Some people genetically, yes, you will gain weight as you get older. How much weight you gain though, that could be very much depend on your lifestyle and your nutrition, and like how much damage did you do to your metabolism, like how much did you support or not support your thyroid, and those things are going to factor into how you gain weight or not. I think there was something about, did we talk about menopausal too? Maybe we didn't.
I don't know if we did. Maybe
menopausal, I think I was talking about it with somebody else, but I think a lot of women think menopausal weight gain is just inevitable, and I think that's not always true. I think again, it's just the lack of education to understand the hormonal changes from, when we're 30 to 40 to 50. If you aren't supporting that, you're not lifting weights to gain muscle, you're supporting your metabolism, you're not getting the protein, you're like looking at your estrogen and progesterone. How can you better tweak that transition? Yeah, you are going to gain more weight if you don't know.
Yeah. But like scientifically,
does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's 100%. I think like the question is, I'm just trying to like interpret it myself.
Well, I think it's not a yes or no answer.
Yeah.
Like,
it's more about your individual experience.
Correct. I think it's like scientifically there is not like, yes, everyone gains weight as they age. I know clients who have lost weight since like they used to be like heavier in high school and 20s, and then now they're 30, 40s and they like feel amazing. And that's because they learned how to eat well. They learned how to manage their stress better. So it's not like an inevitable yes for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like the fear, right? Like I remember being in college, and one of my best friend's mom at the time is I remember like making the comment of like, if I can look like you after I have kids, that would be amazing. And like in hindsight, I'm like, how naive of me. Like I'm going to look like me. Yeah. I'm going to look like whatever my body does. But also if I'm empowered enough, I can look however I want to look, because I can do the work to look that way.
And also, I think, which we talk about so much, I also think stress, just, that like cortisol overload that many women like feel in their 20s and 30s and 40s. And then again, it just it quote unquote catches up to you if you don't build that stress resilience and replenishment over time. And then, it's kind of like a hot mess express. And then you talk about estrogen going up and down and progesterone like suppressing completely. It's kind of like a mix of all of it could lead to, that is why it's so prevalent, is because the lack of like stress management and, again, blood sugar, insulin sensitivity, and, all of those things are going to be
I think that's a really positive answer. I think the answer is no, you don't have to just gain weight because you're getting older, and because you're in menopause, or because you're in perimenopause or whatever.
Perimenopause, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
great news. I'm excited. All it means is, guess what, guys? We have to get a little bit more curious, and we have to give ourselves the permission to take time to slow down and replenish and rejuvenate. Those are like,
and just educate yourself, period, about, what does it mean to like have, to have a healthy metabolism? What does that even mean? It's not just, eating clean and working out. It's so much more than that. It's so
much more than that. Well, because I think naturally growing up, right,
we were taught.
But you were born maybe with a deficiency.
Yeah. There's so many things. There's so many things. Yeah. And like, then of course genetics are always going to play a role, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's just a lot. But I think the biggest thing is just get curious, like do some testing, or even we have clients bring their tests over to us and be like, hey, can you read this? And like, can you interpret it from like a functional lens versus conventional?
Yeah.
Because I think the biggest thing, if you're feeling something, there's usually means something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we answered all the questions and then
Yay!
some. I definitely always love having you on the show. So I'm sure we'll have you back in the future, because I think this is such,
Love it.
It's not the work that I do with my clients. You have to take care of your body. Like, if your body is not right, don't even bother working with me, because like, you're not going to get your mind right. Like, if you feel like shit,
100%. Yeah.
it doesn't matter what work I can give you around your mindset, because you're always going to be on this uphill battle because you physically don't feel well.
Yeah.
So we have to feel better, and then our mind can feel better, and then our whole everything changes. So I'm a holistic coach in the realm of like, you gotta take care of your body. So if you guys want to work with Chrissy, I'll make sure to link all that information below. You can send her questions. Thank you again, Chrissy, and thank you to our listeners, because it was so fun to get your feedback.
Thank you. It was just so cool. Yeah.
So fun.
Send all the feedback. I love it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you on the next Critical Conversation.
Thank you.
Bye.